My mother demanded I hand over my daughter's fully paid wedding venue to my sister for a last-minute vow renewal. I whispered, "Fine," and hung up. Then I called the owner, my college roommate, and initiated a lockdown protocol they never saw coming. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Inherited Revenge. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The migraine had been threatening to split my skull open since Tuesday, a dull, rhythmic thumping behind my left eye that coincided perfectly with the finalization of the seating charts. I was sitting in my home office, the lights dimmed, a cold compress pressed against my forehead, trying to decipher an email from the florist about hydrangeas. My daughter, Amelia, was sitting across from me, her face glowing with the kind of innocent excitement that only a bride 3 weeks out from her wedding could possess. She was meticulously tying ribbons around tiny jars of artisanal honey, her favors. "Mom," she said softly, "do you think Grandma Serenity will like the honey, or should I have gotten the jam for her?" I smiled, fighting the pain in my head. "She'll love it, honey. It's perfect." That was when my phone rang. The screen lit up with a photo of my mother, Serenity, holding a glass of wine and laughing. The ringtone, usually a cheerful melody, sounded like a siren in the quiet room. I hesitated. My mother rarely called just to chat, she called to command. "Hello, Mom," I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Amelia and I were just talking about the—" "Addison, stop." Serenity's voice cut through the line, sharp and breathless, as if she had been running. "We have a crisis, a genuine family emergency." My stomach dropped. I sat up straighter, the cold compress sliding into my lap. "Is it Dad? Is he okay?" No, your father is fine. He's in the garden," she dismissed him instantly. "It's Camilla. Your sister is devastated, Addison, absolutely broken. David, well, things aren't good. They're on the brink of divorce." I let out a breath, the adrenaline turning into annoyance. My sister Camilla's marriage to David had been on the brink since their honeymoon. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom. Really, but I'm not sure what I can do about it right now. I'm drowning in wedding prep." "That's exactly why I'm calling," Serenity said, her voice shifting into that silky, reasonable tone she used when she was about to ask for something unreasonable. "We've been talking, and we found a solution, a way to save the marriage. They need a gesture, a grand, romantic reset, a vow renewal." "Okay," I said slowly, glancing at Amelia, who was happily tying a bow. "That sounds nice for them. Maybe next year they can." "No, Addison. Now. They need it now before he files the papers," Serenity snapped. "And since you've already done all the legwork for Amelia's little party, it just makes sense." I froze, the room went dead silent. "What makes sense?" "The venue," Serenity said, as if stating the weather. "The Gilded Arbor. It's fully paid for, correct? The catering, the flowers, that lovely band you hired. It's all ready to go in 3 weeks. We need that date, Addison. We need you to give the wedding to Camilla." I laughed. It was a dry, involuntary sound. "Mom, you're joking. Amelia is getting married in 3 weeks. Invitations are out. People have booked flights." "Amelia is 25. Serenity's voice rose, trembling with performative outrage. "She has her whole life ahead of her. She can wait a year or two. She's a sweet girl. She'll understand that her aunt's family stability is more important than a party. Camilla is 46, Addison. She doesn't have time to start over. She needs this venue. She needs the magic you've bought." "You want me to cancel my daughter's wedding," I whispered, the pain in my head exploding, "and give the entire event, my money, my planning, my daughter's dream, to Camilla." "I'm not asking you to cancel it," Serenity corrected me, her tone icy. "I'm telling you to postpone it. Be the bigger person, Addison. For once in your life, help your sister without keeping a scorecard." I looked at Amelia. She was humming to herself, holding up a jar of honey to the light, completely unaware that her grandmother was currently trying to erase her happiness to service her aunt's ego. "No," I said. "If you don't," Serenity threatened, her voice dropping to a whisper, "you are tearing this family apart. I will not let you be the reason your sister ends up alone." The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling uncontrollably. The physical pain of the migraine was nothing compared to the hollow ache spreading through my chest. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. For a long time, I just sat there. The silence in the office felt heavy, suffocating. Amelia looked up, her smile fading as she saw my face. "Mom," she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What's wrong? Was that Grandma? Is everything okay?" I forced a smile, though it felt like a mask of cracked porcelain. "It's fine, sweetie, just family drama, nothing for you to worry about." I couldn't tell her, not yet. I couldn't shatter that look of pure joy on her face. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead, and excused myself to the kitchen. My husband, Gabriel, was at the island, chopping vegetables for dinner. He took one look at me, my pale face, the way I was gripping the counter for support, and put the knife down immediately. "Addison," he walked around the island and wrapped his arms around me. "What happened?" I buried my face in his chest, inhaling the scent of his cologne and the onions he'd been chopping. It was grounding. "My mother," I mumbled into his shirt. "She wants us to give the wedding to Camilla. The venue, the date, everything, for a vow renewal." Gabriel stiffened. I felt his muscles tense, a low growl building in his throat. He pulled back, holding me at arm's length, his eyes blazing with a protective fury I rarely saw. "She said what?" "She said Amelia can wait. That Camilla needs it to save her marriage." "That is insane," Gabriel said, his voice dangerously quiet. "That is absolutely delusional. You told her to go to hell, right?" "I said no," I said, rubbing my temples. "But you know Serenity, she doesn't hear no, she hears try harder." The phone rang again. This time it wasn't Serenity, it was Camilla. I put it on speaker so Gabriel could hear. "Addison," Camilla's voice floated out, breezy and light, as if she hadn't just dispatched our mother to execute a hostile takeover of my life. "So, Mom told me you're being a bit stubborn, but I told her, don't worry, Addison always comes around. Listen, I need the vendor list. Specifically the caterer. David is allergic to shellfish, so we need to swap the lobster bisque for something else. Maybe a truffle risotto." I stared at the phone, stunned by the sheer velocity of her entitlement. She wasn't asking. She was already redecorating. "Camilla," I said, my voice shaking, "I haven't agreed to anything. Amelia is getting married in 3 weeks." "Oh, stop it," Camilla laughed. It was a harsh, tinny sound. "Amelia is a baby. She probably doesn't even know what she wants yet. Honestly, you're doing her a favor. Let her grow up a bit more. Besides, David and I have been through hell this year. We deserve a win. You have the money, Addison. You can just pay for Amelia's thing again next year. It's not a big deal to you." Gabriel stepped forward, his hand reaching for the phone to end the call, but I shook my head. I needed to hear this. I needed to hear the full extent of their delusion. "I need the login for the venue portal too," Camilla continued, oblivious. "I want to change the lighting scheme. The blush pink you picked is a little juvenile. I want deep reds. Passion, you know." "The venue is non-transferable, Camilla," I lied, though I knew Sarah would do anything for me. "Everything is transferable if you throw enough money at it," Camilla scoffed. "And we know you have plenty. Just send over the login, Addie. Don't make Mom call you again. You know how her blood pressure gets." She hung up without waiting for a goodbye. Gabriel stared at the phone, his jaw clenched so hard a muscle feathered in his cheek. "I'm going to call the police," he said flatly. "Or a hitman, I haven't decided." "No," I said, a strange calm settling over me. The shock was fading, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I looked at the calendar on the fridge, where Amelia's big day was circled in bright red marker. They thought I was the same Addison I had been for 40 years. The Addison who kept the peace. The Addison who wrote the checks and apologized for things she didn't do just to keep Serenity from crying. They thought my love for my daughter was softer than my fear of my mother. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. The owner of the Gilded Arbor wasn't just a vendor. She was Sarah. And Sarah knew exactly where the bodies were buried because she'd helped me dig the graves of my past life 20 years ago. To understand why my mother thought she could demand a $15,000 venue like she was borrowing a cup of sugar, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. I was the draft horse, Camilla was the unicorn. From the time we were children, I was the sensible one. I was good at math, I saved my allowance, I followed the rules. Camilla was the spirit. She was beautiful, chaotic, and utterly incapable of handling consequences. When she crashed Dad's car at 16, I was the one who drove her to school for 6 months while she complained about my radio station. When she dropped out of college to pursue energy healing, I was the one who helped her pay off her credit cards when the business inevitably imploded. I became a project manager because managing disasters was the only language I spoke fluently. I built a life of structure, spreadsheets, and safety. I married Gabriel, a man as solid as oak, and we raised Amelia to be kind, but also capable. Camilla, on the other hand, never grew up. At 46, she still dressed like she was attending Coachella, draped in expensive boho chic fabrics that Serenity paid for. She called herself a lifestyle architect, a job title that seemed to involve posting photos of brunch and judging other people's feng shui. She had married David, a man with wandering eyes and a wallet he couldn't keep closed, 5 years ago. It was a massive wedding, paid for by my parents, who had refinanced their home to afford it. I had been the maid of honor, holding her dress while she threw up from nerves, tequila, in the bathroom. Now she wanted my daughter's turn. Later that evening, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera, it was Serenity. "She's here," I told Gabriel. "I'm not letting her in," he said, moving toward the door. "No, let her in," I said, standing up. "I need to look her in the eye." Serenity swept into the living room in a cloud of expensive perfume, clutching a leather portfolio. She didn't look like a grandmother. She looked like a CEO arriving to liquidate a company. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her makeup flawless. "Addison," she said, bypassing a greeting. She sat on my sofa, looking around with a critical eye. "I see you haven't updated these curtains yet. They make the room look so tired." "Mom," I said, remaining standing. Gabriel stood behind me, arms crossed. "Why are you here?" "I'm here to facilitate," she said, opening the portfolio. She pulled out a sheet of paper. It was a contract. Or rather, a transfer agreement she had drafted herself. "I know you're emotional, so I've made this simple. You sign the venue over to Camilla. In exchange, I will personally pay for Amelia's wedding next year. I'll even contribute an extra $1,000 for her trouble." $1,000? Gabriel scoffed. "We've spent $5,000 just on the deposit for the caterer. The venue alone was $15,000. The total cost is pushing $30,000. Serenity waved a hand dismissively. "Money comes and goes, Gabriel. Family is forever. Camilla is in crisis. She needs to feel special. She needs to feel like a bride again to remind David of what he has." "And Amelia?" I asked, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Does she not deserve to feel special?" Serenity sighed, looking at me with disappointed pity. "Amelia is a sweet girl, but let's be honest, Addison, she's not. She doesn't have Camilla's flair. Amelia's wedding will be lovely whenever it happens. But Camilla, she needs an audience. She needs the spotlight to thrive. If we deny her this, she might spiral. Do you want that on your conscience?" She looked at me, her eyes wide and pleading, the master manipulator at work. She was weaponizing my sister's incompetence, using it as a bludgeon to smash my daughter's dreams. "She's your sister," Serenity whispered. "You always take care of her. Why stop now?" I looked at the woman who had given birth to me. I saw the calculation in her eyes. She didn't care about Amelia's happiness. She didn't even really care about Camilla's marriage. She cared about the image. She wanted the vow renewal photos for Facebook. She wanted the drama, the attention, the glory of saving the day, all at my expense. She was waiting for me to fold, to sigh, pick up the pen, and be the good girl. "Leave the papers," I said quietly. Serenity smiled, a triumphant, shark-like expression. "I knew you'd see reason. I'll tell Camilla to call the florist in the morning." She stood up, patted my cheek, a gesture that felt more like a slap, and walked out. Gabriel looked at me, horror in his eyes. "Addison, tell me you aren't actually considering this." I picked up the papers Serenity had left. I looked at the ridiculous, unenforceable legal jargon she had typed up. "I'm not considering it," I said, ripping the paper in half. "I'm planning." The silence in the kitchen after Serenity left was absolute, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. Gabriel was pacing, a kinetic energy radiating from him that made the air feel charged. "We have to tell Amelia," he said, stopping mid-stride to look at me. "We have to cancel the vendors ourselves before your mother does something insane like trying to hijack the catering truck." "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I was no longer the daughter who flinched. I was the project manager looking at a failing timeline and a critical resource conflict. "If we cancel, they win. If we fight them openly, they'll make Amelia's life miserable for the next 10 years. They'll paint you as the villains who ruined Camilla's last chance at happiness. Serenity will weaponize the entire extended family against Amelia." I walked over to the counter and picked up my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "I'm going to give them exactly what they asked for," I said, scrolling through my contacts until I landed on Sarah, Gilded Arbor. "Or at least, I'm going to let them believe I did." Gabriel frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I'm going to say yes," I explained, tapping the call button. "And then I'm going to ensure they walk into a buzzsaw." Sarah picked up on the second ring. "Addie, I was just looking at the final floral mock-ups. The white wisteria is going to look." "Sarah," I cut in, my tone serious. "Remember back in sophomore year when I told you my family was complicated?" There was a pause on the line. Sarah's voice dropped, shifting from professional cheer to the intimate, guarded tone of an old friend who knew where the bodies were buried. "I remember you crying in our dorm room because your mother returned your birthday gift to buy your sister a prom dress. What did they do?" "They want the date," I said. "My mother and sister are demanding I hand over Amelia's wedding, the venue, the vendors, everything for a vow renewal. They want me to step aside." "You're joking," Sarah deadpanned. "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish. They're serious. They're claiming it's to save Camilla's marriage. They're going to show up, Sarah. They're going to try to take over." "Over my dead body," Sarah growled. "I have a contract with you. I don't care if the Pope shows up. If his name isn't Addison or Amelia, he's not getting in." "That's exactly what I'm counting on," I said. "But I need you to do something for me. I need you to initiate a ghost protocol." "Go on." "I'm going to tell them yes. I'm going to tell them the venue is theirs. But you need to make sure that when they call to make changes, they get a voicemail, or an intern who knows nothing. Block their numbers if you have to, but under no circumstances do you actually change a single napkin on the order. The reservation stays in Amelia's name. The security list stays in Amelia's name." "You want to ambush them," Sarah said, a slow, appreciative laugh bubbling up. "You want them to show up in their white dresses and find the doors locked." "I want them to understand that no is a complete sentence," I corrected. "And I want it to happen in a way they can never spin, publicly, irrefutably." "Done," Sarah said. "I'll alert my head of security. His name is Marcus. He's 6'4" and doesn't have a sense of humor. I'll put him on the front gate personally." After I hung up, I turned to Gabriel. He was looking at me with a mixture of awe and slight terror. "You're terrifying," he said softly. "I'm a mother," I replied. The next morning, I initiated the deception. I called Serenity. "Fine," I said into the phone, keeping my voice flat and defeated. "You win. I can't fight you anymore. Amelia is young, she can wait. I'll tell her. You can have the venue. Oh, Addison, Serenity exclaimed, the relief palpable. I knew you'd come around. You're doing the right thing. Camilla is going to be so relieved. We'll need the vendor contracts sent over immediately so we can. I'll handle the vendors, I lied smoothly. It's too complicated to transfer the contracts this late. I'll just act as the point person. You tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. Well, all right, Serenity agreed, likely thrilled she wouldn't have to do any actual work. Just make sure the cake is changed. Camilla wants lemon, not vanilla. Lemon, got it, I said, writing absolutely nothing down. Once the trap was set, I needed to understand the why. Why now? Why this sudden, desperate urgency for a vow renewal? I opened my laptop and started digging. As a project manager, forensic accounting was part of my toolkit. I knew David's business, a boutique real estate firm, had been struggling, but Camilla's social media portrayed a life of endless luxury. I pulled public records. It took me about 20 minutes to find the truth. David wasn't just struggling, he was drowning. There were 3 liens against their house, a lawsuit from a former partner pending, and most interestingly, a recent credit inquiry for a massive personal loan that had been denied. Then I checked Camilla's social media again. Buried in a tagged photo from a week ago, I saw it. A comment from a woman named Jessica on David's profile, quickly deleted but preserved in a cached version of the page. Can't wait for the weekend. Zoe. The vow renewal wasn't about love. It was a smokescreen. They needed a public display of unity to secure financing. Investors don't lend to men going through messy divorces, and they needed the cash gifts from guests to pay off the immediate interest on their debts. They were going to use my daughter's wedding as a fundraiser for their mismanagement. The hardest part was telling Amelia. I sat her down in the living room 2 days later. Gabriel held her hand. When I told her what her grandmother and aunt had demanded, she didn't get angry. She just cried. Silent, heartbreaking tears that rolled down her cheeks. Why do they hate me? She whispered. They don't hate you, honey, I said, my heart breaking. They just love themselves too much to see anyone else. But listen to me. This wedding is happening. It is going to be your day. We aren't changing a thing. I explained the plan. I told her about Sarah, about the security, about the trap. Amelia wiped her eyes. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flash of my own steel in her gaze. So, when Aunt Camilla posts about her big day, you ignore it, I said. You let her build her castle on the sand. And on the 14th, we watch the tide come in. The first major confrontation happened a week later at a reconciliation dinner Serenity insisted on hosting. It was at Serenity's house. The air was thick with the smell of pot roast and pretension. Camilla was glowing, practically vibrating with triumph. She was wearing a white dress, an actual white cocktail dress, as if rehearsing for the main event. I'm just so grateful you saw reason, Addie, Camilla gushed, pouring herself a massive glass of wine. David and I really needed this. The energy has been so off lately, but this renewal, it's going to reset our chakras. David sat at the end of the table, looking pale and sweaty. He barely touched his food. So, about the guest list, Camilla continued, waving her fork. I've invited about 50 of our friends. You'll need to cut some of Amelia's list to make room. Maybe those college friends of hers, they don't give good gifts anyway. I slowly cut a piece of my roast beef. The guest list is finalized, Camilla. The caterer can't make changes this late. Don't be difficult, Serenity snapped from the head of the table. Just pay the rush fee, Addison. You can afford it. It's not about the fee, I said, looking directly at David. It's about capacity. And honestly, I'm surprised you want to invite more people, David, considering the liquidity issues. The table went silent. David's fork clattered against his plate. Excuse me, Camilla laughed nervously. What are you talking about? David's business is booming. Is it? I took a sip of water. Because I heard the bank denied the refinancing on the house last week, And with the Leons, well, I just assumed you'd want to keep the event small, to save money. Camilla's face went from smug to purple in 3 seconds. How dare you? You've been spying on us. I've been protecting my investment, I said calmly. Since I'm paying for this renewal, I wanted to make sure you weren't hiding anything that might complicate the day. You're just jealous, Camilla shrieked, standing up. You're jealous because David and I have a passionate, fiery love and you and Gabriel are just boring. You're trying to sabotage me. Sit down, Camilla, Serenity commanded, though she looked rattled. She turned her gaze to me, cold and hard. Addison, that was unnecessary. We are family. We help each other. If David is having a temporary cash flow problem, that is all the more reason to make this event spectacular. They need the support. Support, Gabriel muttered, or the gift envelopes. That is enough, Serenity slammed her hand on the table. The wedding is Camilla's. That is final. Addison, you will apologize to your sister, and you will add her 50 guests. I don't care if you have to seat them on the roof. Do you understand me? I looked at my mother. I looked at the fear in David's eyes and the entitlement in Camilla's. Fine, I said again, the word tasting like ash. I'll see what I can do. Good, Serenity said, smoothing her napkin. I knew you'd handle it. They actually believed it. They were so accustomed to my capitulation that they couldn't see the knife I was holding behind my back. The final week was a blur of covert operations. While Camilla was posting countdowns on Facebook, 5 days until we say I do again, love wins sisterly love, I was on the phone with Sarah, finalizing the security perimeter. She tried to call the bakery yesterday, I told Sarah. She wanted to change the cake topper to a phoenix rising from the ashes. Disgusting, Sarah noted. What did the baker say? He told her he couldn't find the order under her name. She screamed at him for 10 minutes until he hung up. Then she called me, and I told her it was a privacy setting on the account and I'd fix it. You're evil, Sarah laughed. I love it. Did you get the extra guards? Yes, 4 off-duty police officers, and I've printed the guest list. It's strictly Amelia's list. If their name isn't on it, they don't get past the outer gate. But the stakes were raising. 2 days before the wedding, I received a notification from my bank, a request for a wire transfer of $5,000. Serenity had access to an old joint account we had never closed, one I used for managing my dad's medical expenses years ago. She was trying to drain it to pay for a surprise fireworks display she had booked independently. I blocked the transfer immediately and closed the account. 10 minutes later, my phone blew up. You blocked the payment, Serenity screamed into the voicemail. How could you be so petty? This is for your sister. You are ruining everything. I didn't call back. The night before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner was held at a small Italian restaurant. We hadn't invited Serenity or Camilla. It was just Amelia, her fiancé Mark, Gabriel, and me. Amelia looked terrified. Mom, what if they show up tomorrow? What if they make a scene? They will show up, I promised her, taking her hand. And they will try to make a scene, but they won't get within 100 yards of you. Sarah has a holding room set up at the front gate. It's soundproof. I don't want to see them, Amelia whispered. You won't, I said. By the time they realize what's happening, you'll be walking down the aisle. But I had one final card to play. I needed to ensure that when the explosion happened, the fallout landed on the right people. I had contacted Jessica, the woman from David's Facebook. It turned out she wasn't just a fling. She was his former assistant who was suing him for harassment and unpaid wages. And she had texts. Lots of them. Texts where David called Camilla a leech and joked about how the vow renewal was just a PR stunt to get her parents to pay off his gambling debts. I printed them out. I put them in a cream-colored envelope. And I placed it in my purse, right next to the check for the final venue payment. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. A perfect day for a wedding or a funeral. The morning of the 14th was pristine. The sky over the gilded arbor was a piercing, cloudless blue, the kind of weather brides pray for but rarely receive. Inside the bridal suite, the atmosphere was a fragile ecosystem of hairspray, champagne, and nerves. Amelia sat in front of the vanity, her reflection framed by the oversized mirror. She looked ethereal in her gown, a delicate lace creation that we had picked out months ago, long before Serenity had tried to turn it into a costume for her aunt. But her hands were trembling in her lap. "They're going to come, aren't they?" she whispered, not looking at me. "Yes," I said, fastening my pearl earrings. "They are." "What if they get in?" "They won't." I walked over and placed my hands on her shoulders, looking at our reflections. "Sarah has Marcus at the gate. He used to bounce for a club in downtown Chicago. Trust me, Serenity isn't getting past him." At 1:00 p.m., an hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, target acquired. "They're at the North Gate. It's a circus." "Stay here," I told Amelia and Gabriel. "I'll handle this." I walked out of the suite, down the marble steps of the manor, and into a waiting golf cart Sarah had arranged. We drove down the long, winding driveway lined with ancient oaks until the iron gates came into view. And there they were. It was a spectacle that defied logic. A stretch Hummer limo was idling at the entrance. Behind it, a convoy of about 10 cars, Camilla's 50 guests, were backed up, honking. Standing in front of the closed iron gates was a tableau of pure entitlement. Camilla was wearing a white ball gown, a literal wedding dress, complete with a tiara. Serenity was in a mother-of-the-bride dress that cost more than my first car. David stood awkwardly by the limo, adjusting a tuxedo that looked too tight, looking like a man waiting for the executioner. They were screaming at Marcus, who stood like a granite statue, arms crossed over his chest, blocking the keypad. "I am the mother of the bride," Serenity was shrieking, pointing a manicured finger at Marcus's chest. "Open this gate immediately. My daughter has a schedule to keep." "Name not on the list," Marcus rumbled, his voice deep and bored. "This is ridiculous," Camilla yelled, her voice cracking. "I am Camilla. This is my venue. My sister paid for it. Call her. Call Addison right now." The golf cart pulled up and I stepped out. The gravel crunched under my heels. "Addison," Serenity gasped, relief flooding her face before instantly hardening into anger. "Thank God. Tell this brute to open the gate. We're already behind schedule. The photographer is stuck in the back." I walked up to the gate, staying on the inside. The iron bars separated us, a physical manifestation of the boundary I should have set 20 years ago. "Hello, Mom. Hello, Camilla," I said calmly. "Addie," Camilla cried, gesturing to her dress. "Look at this mess. Fix it. Tell him to open the gate." "No," I said. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the idling engine of the Hummer. "What did you say?" Serenity whispered, her eyes narrowing. "I said no, you aren't coming in. None of you are." But you said," Camilla stammered, her face flushing a blotchy red. "You said I could have the date. You said Amelia could wait." "I lied," I said, my voice projecting clearly so her guests in the front cars could hear. "I lied to stop you from harassing my daughter. I lied so you wouldn't ruin the weeks leading up to her wedding. This venue is for Amelia. It has always been for Amelia. There is no vow renewal. There is no reservation for you." You bitch," Camilla screamed, grabbing the iron bars and shaking them. "You can't do this. I have guests. I have a photographer. I have a reputation." "You have a delusion," I corrected her, "and a lot of debt." Serenity stepped forward, her face a mask of cold fury. "Addison, open this gate right now or I will never forgive you. I will cut you out. I will make sure you never see your father again." "Dad is already inside," I said, watching her face crumble. "Gabriel picked him up 3 hours ago. He's walking Amelia down the aisle in 45 minutes. He wouldn't," Serenity gasped. "He did, because he knows what you are," I said. "He knows you were trying to steal his granddaughter's wedding to soothe your golden child's ego." David, who had been silent, suddenly stepped forward. Addison, look, let's be reasonable. We have investors coming. I mean, friends, important friends. We can't turn them away. Just let us use the side lawn. We won't interfere. I looked at David, sweating in his rental tux. I reached into my purse and pulled out the cream-colored envelope. Investors? I asked, holding it up. Is that what you call them? Or are you talking about the people you owe money to? David's face went gray. What is that? This, I said, is a little wedding gift. Since you wanted a vow renewal so badly, I thought we should renew the truth. I slid the envelope through the bars. It landed at Camilla's feet. What is this? Camilla asked, looking between me and David. Open it, I said. Camilla bent down, struggling with her massive skirt, and tore open the envelope. She pulled out the stack of printed screenshots. I watched as her eyes scanned the top page. I watched the confusion turn to shock and then to horror. Jessica, she whispered. She looked up at David. Who is Jessica? David lunged for the papers. Don't read that, it's fake, she faked it. But Camilla pulled back, reading the highlighted text aloud, her voice trembling. Just got the venue confirmed. My wife's idiot sister is paying for everything. Once we get the cash gifts, I can pay off the bookie and we can finally leave this sinking ship. I'm leaving her in January. A gasp went through the small crowd of onlookers. Serenity snatched the papers from Camilla's hand, reading them frantically. David, Serenity looked up, her face pale. You said the business was expanding. He lied, I said simply. He's broke, Mom. He has 3 liens on the house. He was using this renewal to get cash from your friends to pay off his gambling debts. And he's been sleeping with his former assistant for 6 months. Camilla let out a sound that wasn't quite human, a high, keening wail of pure humiliation. She turned on David, swinging her bouquet of white roses like a club. You liar, you loser, you said we were power partners. Camilla, wait, David tried to back away, but she was on him, screaming, tearing at his lapels. The guests in the cars were rolling down their windows, phones out, recording the entire meltdown. Serenity stood frozen, the papers fluttering from her hand to the gravel. She looked at the chaos, her perfect daughter screaming like a banshee, her son-in-law cowering, her social standing evaporating in real time. Then she looked at me. Addison, she pleaded, her voice small and broken. Please, let us in. We can fix this inside. Don't let them see this. I looked at the woman who had demanded I sacrifice my daughter's happiness for this charade. I felt a pang of pity, but it was distant, like looking at a stranger. No, I said. This is the bed you made, Mom. You have to lie in it, outside. I turned to Marcus. Keep the gate closed. Yes, ma'am, he said, a hint of a smile on his face. I got back into the golf cart. As we drove away, back up the winding drive toward the manor, the sounds of Camilla's screaming and the honking horns faded into the distance, replaced by the gentle rustle of the wind in the oaks. I didn't look back. The ceremony was perfect. When the music started and the heavy oak doors of the manor opened, Amelia stepped out into the sunlight. She looked breathtaking. My father, looking dapper and teary-eyed in his tux, walked her down the aisle. He had listened to me, for once. When Gabriel had picked him up that morning, Dad had seen. Empli nodded and said, "It's time." There were no interruptions, no screaming aunts, no manipulative grandmothers, just love. Pure, unadulterated, selfish love. During the reception, Sarah found me by the champagne tower. She handed me a glass. They're gone, she said quietly. Police had to come to clear the driveway. Apparently, Camilla tried to climb the fence in her gown. It didn't end well for the tool. And David. He took an Uber, left Camilla screaming on the roadside. Sarah clinked her glass against mine. You did good, Addie. You protected the castle. I protected my daughter, I corrected her, watching Amelia dance with her new husband. They were laughing, spinning in circles, oblivious to the storm that had raged at the gates. The fallout was swift and brutal. Camilla's meltdown went viral, or at least, viral within our local community. One of her friends had live-streamed the confrontation at the gate. The video of her screaming, "I am the bride," while hitting her husband with roses became the talk of the town. David filed for divorce 2 weeks later, but there was nothing to take. The house was foreclosed on. The cars were repossessed. His Jessica left him the moment the money dried up. Camilla had to move back in with Serenity. It was a poetic kind of justice. The two of them, trapped together in a house that was too big and too quiet, feeding off each other's misery. Serenity tried to call me a few times, leaving weeping voicemails about family duty and forgiveness, but I never picked up. I had blocked their numbers, I had blocked their emails, I had even blocked them on LinkedIn. Gabriel and I paid for Amelia and Mark to go to Fiji for their honeymoon. It was the money we had saved by not paying for Camilla's renewal. A month after the wedding, Amelia came over for dinner. She looked different, lighter, happier. She sat at the kitchen island, watching me chop vegetables. "Mom," she said, "Dad told me what happened at the gate, with the text messages." I paused, knife hovering over a pepper. "He did." "Yeah," she reached out and covered my hand with hers. "Thank you, for being the bad guy so I didn't have to be, for fighting for me." I put the knife down and squeezed her hand. "I wasn't being the bad guy, honey. I was being your mother, and I will always fight for you." We ate dinner on the patio that night, watching the sun set. The air was cool and crisp. I thought about my mother and sister, probably sitting in their dark living room, replaying their grievances, stuck in a loop of their own making. And then I looked at my husband, pouring wine, and my daughter, laughing at a joke he made. I realized I hadn't lost my family. I had simply pruned the dead branches so the rest of the tree could finally bloom. The migraine I had lived with for 40 years was finally gone.